special session, Mayor and City Council meeting, 5 p.m. Tuesday, July 16, 2024. Call this meeting to order. Would you please rise for a pledge of allegiance? Vice Mayor, who does the honor?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, first of all, I'm good. I'm back. And got okay from the hospital. And thanks for everybody's prayers. But I'm back, okay? Wasn't expected, but I didn't even expect it. So I'm on a diet. Got to follow up, and let me tell you, it's eye-opener, and we got to do it right. So thank you, everybody. Besides that, Ms. Letty, on behalf of everybody, happy birthday. Happy birthday. Okay. Now we go to call to the public. We got Municipal Court Judge, Mr. Robert Gilliland. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice and Council. It's good to see you again. I'm going to start sounding like a broken record if it just keeps going. Sorry. I'm going to sound like a broken record after a while here. I'm going to say some of the same things. I have some different things to say as well in regards to today's budget meeting. It's really important that this body passes its budget. I know that it isn't required under law, but to be fiscally responsible, get the budget passed, and do that today. As regards employee pay, in those decisions to make a cost of living adjustment, here we are, middle of July. This cost of living adjustment has been in the works for a long time. It has been calculated by your manager and approved by accounting staff that this is a sound plan. 5% across the board is the proposal as I have understood it. I also have talked with members of council who don't like that plan. I don't agree with the dislike of the plan because the cost of living adjustment is basically that. It's for the cost of living. What is it in response to? It's in response to inflation. Inflation is the devaluation of the dollar. You pay right now less to all of your employees than when they started. You have effectively given a pay cut to your entire staff, and a cost of living adjustment is in order to resolve some of that. If your goal is market rate, you're not going to do any disservice to anybody by passing the 5% today, getting the market rate study done, and then making adjustments in that direction. You won't be overpaying anybody at the top, which seems like what the concerns have been. In fact, you may be overpaying the people in the bottom with a 5% raise because nobody in the city will then be paid minimum wage. Nobody will have minimum wage. And I know that you disagree with that. But that's what it is. It's the cost of the dollar. The dollar isn't worth what it was 2 years ago, or 3 years, or 4 or 5, depending on how long employees have stayed here. You have cut them by not increasing their cost of living. I heard loud and clear that this body does not want to, or at least members of this body does not want to honor the contract that it's made with directors such as myself that have a contract that includes a cost of living adjustment. You don't want it to happen that way. And I get that. I'll be renegotiating my contract with you because in my eyes, you're in breach of contract with me, right? But I'm going to put that aside because right now we're not about that. Right now we're talking about this year's budget. We're talking about 5%. It needs to be across the board because everybody's dollar is worth less today than it was before. And if you're looking at doing some social engineering right now and taking care of people, instead of saying, this is what we did, we said we were going to pay this amount, it's no longer worth the same as what we started with. A cost of living adjustment gets us towards healing the damage that has been done by inflation. It's not getting us there all the way, but it's moving us in that direction. You need to start thinking about that now and deciding now. The more that you put this off, the more that your employers are being underpaid. You are paying the sales price right now for your employees. Everybody's on sale right now, and we're tired of it. My staff is tired of it. They've talked to me about it several times. It just has to be done. And getting this passed will allow us to, in this next year and soon in this next year, to make adjustments according to the market rate. It just needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have Mr. Jose Pimienta.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council, citizens, and fellow employees here. I have one thing to say, follow up with what the judge said is 5% is where we need to be at. And the reason why is here. Before you start throwing out terms of equality, equitable, think about what's doing right for your employees. How about keeping the employees happy? Cost of living and inflation is ridiculous. And like he said, the more we work, the less we take home. So instead of focusing on let's get closer to Santa Cruz County employee budget, how about giving something back to the employees so they can take a little bit more home and maybe afford something else for them and their families? That's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have Mr. Oscar Mesta.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Manager. Good to see everybody. Letty, happy birthday. I'm Oscar Mesta. I've been a police officer in the city of Nogales and a member of MPOA for the last 15 years. Just want to express my disbelief with the council. It is insane to know that the issue regarding raises has taken so long to approve. Personal vendetta Ms. Montiel and others have taken against Mr. Bermudez is ridiculous. As a city employee, like all the other 315 employees here, we're suffering, have no faith in you because look at, no sanitation, no public works, no one's here. We're all suffering because you guys haven't done anything yet. We're kind of waiting for this novela to finish. The issue has been tabled numerous times, and probably again today, because you guys might be bickering about it. But you guys have all the numbers you get requested for every scenario. MPOA has supporting the 5% across the board to all employees. That's the fairest thing to do. This shows the city council the appreciation of loyalty to every employee to the city. The council has previous employees on the board that were loyal for many years, but it seems like they forgot where they came from. Trying to analyze each employee's salary and determine how much they get is wrong. The issue that Mr. Bermudez is getting the most, you're doing. You guys approved the contract. You knew what was in the fine print. Now, because of what he did, or he said no to somebody's request, doesn't want to be a puppet. Now he's the worst and doesn't deserve a raise. He's doing his job. But I bet no one has even asked him if he would give up his raise this year. Of course not. You guys are trying to bully it through to prove something. I'd fight back. It's human nature if you try to bully something on me too. Not giving the 5% at all will have its consequences because young officers will feel that the city does not have the interest for them or their families. 5% will get us closer to where we need to be. Hopefully that would be in January. But now, granted, some positions do pay more in the city. They're available to every other city employee, especially public service, police, fire. We're always hiring. 911 never takes a day off. This is why our officers do not want to promote within our ranks. The higher you get, the less you make. I ask that each city manager, or correction, each city member to think individually and not be bullied and scared by a certain city council member, to show each employee that you are appreciated for their hard work and loyalty to the city. Like we said before, the employees make the city safe and keep it running every day. And keep in mind, the county just approved a 6% raise to each of its employees. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. No more call to public. Thank you, ma'am. Okay, we move to item number 4, public hearing on final budget of fiscal year 2024. And we go, do you move to orders, or does anyone have any questions? Because I'm ready to vote.
Yes, Mayor, I was wondering if I think the last time we said we were gonna either tweak or fine tune or talk about the different plans that were roaming around. Are we gonna cover that here or on the other order?
Doesn't matter where we covered,
I don't,
basically go down to orders and covered it on discussion. If somebody wants to discuss,
yeah,
I don't know discussion.
Mayor and Council, the call to the public effectively was your public hearing on the budget. So I would go to the orders and then have the council discussion amongst yourselves.
Okay, that's what I thought. All right, so then everybody, the budget has been announced in the paper, and we've done all the requirements. So now we'll go down to number 5, orders, consideration and possible action of order 2024-07-028, an order of the Council of the City of Nogales, Arizona, adopting the official final budget for fiscal year 2024-2025. For me, I'd say with a 5% increase as originally suggested and proposed by staff.
Is this open for discussion now?
Did anybody second it?
Okay.
That's my motion.
I second.
You want to discuss it? I'm ready to vote.
I know that the last thing we want is not to pass this, and I wanted to hopefully put another plan or proposal that would be 5% for 98% of all city employees from the 300 plus, and then tweak it a little for the upper tier. So I don't know if you want to vote first on something and then talk about the other plan, or do we talk about all the plans that any other councilman might have to see which one the majority of the council likes?
As for me, Mr. Doyle, you're going to start tweaking, you're going to start pointing. We're going to be here till midnight,
Well,
and I don't think it's a rational thing to do. So
well,
I made my motion, and you
Okay.
discussed.
well, I've had some feedback on some public members that they were concerned about the city manager kind of putting himself as a raise when he hasn't been here as city manager, not acting city manager, but city manager for roughly 8 months, and already he's going to get $7,500 raise, where from when they compare it to other salaries around town, which is usually teachers and whatnot, they say it takes them to get a $7,500 raise, depending their position, anywhere to 5 to 8 years, and so they're kind of and the last time that we were going to get an evaluation, the council even said no. the city manager hasn't been here that long. So I find it a little stressful to give explanations to the general public as far as the city manager's position. As he said, that he's on contract, that contract people should negotiate their contracts. So that's why I wanted to make a proposal that everybody that's starting pay up to $89,999 get a 5% increase, and the rest get 2%, where the contracts, they can renegotiate their contract when their time comes. And that's the proposal I have.
Okay. But, it's legal. Legal, basically, we don't abide by what their contract says, then we might have some legal problems, right?
Well, I think if your contract employees have a provision or a clause in their contracts saying that they're entitled to the same cost of living increase as provided to employees across the board, I think you would have some potential issues because it's a contractual obligation, and typically a COLA is not merit based. It is strictly a cost of living, adjustment. So it's not uncommon for an employee to be, at a government agency for 6 months, and then everybody gets cost of living adjustment in that employer or 2 weeks. So because it's not based on merit. So I suppose in theory you could, for your non-contract employees, have a staggered cost of living adjustment for, I think as you're suggesting, anybody over 90,000 would get a lesser cost of living increase, is I think what I'm hearing, as long as as long as you're not obligated by contract to provide that across the board COLA to those contract employees. I guess in theory, it'd be your call, your decision as council to sort of have a tiered cost of living adjustment. I would sort of suggest that the cost of living is the same, the cost of living increase is the same for everybody. So if inflation's at 10%, it doesn't matter how much you make. I mean, that to me, that in my experience, that's the intent of a cost of living adjustment, is that everybody's cost of living has gone up, let's say 7% or whatever the number is. It doesn't matter where you are on the pay scale. But again, ultimately it's your decision to make, as long as you abide by on the contract employees, abide by those contracts.
Thank you, sir.
So if I understood clearly, would it be a violation against the contract people if they don't get their raise and the others do?
I'd have to look at the exact language of the contracts, but if the contracts require that your contract employees receive the same cost of living increases across the board, then
Yeah, but we're talking about across the board. But if we tweak it and don't go across the board, just up to
I'd have a hard.
the workers,
Yeah.
the working class people get $9.99, and then the remainder, well, we can include the 2% even for the contract people at this point, so that everybody will
Mr.
be
Doyle,
happy.
for me, it's either it's white or it's black.
Pardon?
Either it's red or white or red or green. There's, they're all employees.
No, definitely. But see, like you said, will be visiting back. And,
We will be
and
looking
we
at
always
back.
do, but the lower tier is the one that always
That's why,
has a hard time.
that's why we're going at
Rate.
an equal 5% for everybody.
Yeah.
And then we're going to do the compensation study, come back and look at the whole thing.
Well, it's like if you get somebody in 90,000, if you give them 2%, then they'll get, what is it, at 90, they get almost 2,000, 1,800. And the lower tier gets about 1,600. So the thing is, though, the ones that are making more money, again, they're not going to suffer going to the store and buying their groceries like the bottom tiers. And so that's where it becomes more balanced. And again, to avoid contract issues or something, this is a very simple plan. It's just up everybody that's in between that range of starting pay to 89,999 to get their 5%, which is really decent, because that's where our law enforcement, the firemen, the guys that really put their life on the line, and will still be getting the 5% that wants to be placed out there, and everybody below that too. So the thing that once you say, well, 90 to everybody else at 2%, it's not going to be across the board, but it's going to be fair for everybody. Even the ones that are in contract, they'll be getting the same percentage as the rest of the people that make over 90. I'm just throwing the numbers here, but that's something for the council to consider.
Okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Bonillas.
I guess some of the council members are tone deaf. I guess they weren't paying attention and called to the public. Again, may I remind that Councilman Doyle, Bojorquez, Montiel, and even the mayor approved the contract for Mr. Bermudez. Well, now it turns out that we have to hold hostage our employees with their 5% because it's a personal thing. You praised him 4 weeks into his when he was working here, and now it turns out that he doesn't deserve it. Last time we were here, you said that you were very disappointed. But 4 weeks when he was barely working here, you praised him. What changed?
You want me to answer
What changed? When I'm done, you can answer it.
Gentlemen,
And so, Mayor, what I say,
Let's stick
we've
to the
discussed it many
to the
times.
budget.
We discussed it already. We discussed this many times. Obviously, nothing's going to change. So, Mayor, I make a motion to approve, to vote yes on this on the budget. And let's take a roll call right now, Mayor. We're not going to get anywhere.
Just to remind the council, there's already a motion and a second on the table to approve the budget, I believe with a 5% across the board increase, COLA increase for all employees. That's the current motion on the table. And the council is free to debate that motion and ask for amendments to that motion. So, but it's up to the motion maker and the second to agree to any.
Thank you, Mr. Palladini. And just to finish my comment is that we need to approve this for our employees. Obviously, they can perceive that there's issues amongst us. That is, it's a personal issue. I don't think that we should hold hostage our employees. 5% is equal to everyone. When we start targeting people and saying none for you, a little bit less for you, and more for you here, we're going to get into trouble. It's what I call targeting. 5% across the board. Mayor and Mr. Bojorquez and I and everyone else here knows that we got to revisit this after we get the compensation study back in here. I don't see what the issue is. If it's a personal thing with the city manager, then iron it out. Please figure it out, iron it out in his office. But I don't think our employees at this time should be paying the price. That's all I have to say.
thank you.
Mayor, I believe we have just a little over 300 employees, and a little over 300 employees are going to get the 5% with the plan I proposed. There's only going to be less than a dozen that will get the 2%. So as far as the employees, the great number of them, they'll all get the 5%. So if we can amend it to simplify it, well, then 5% up to 89.99, and anything above that, 2%. Can't get more simple than that.
And maybe 1 second. I won't.
Was that a motion? Well, it's I'm just saying that we need to amend it. You can amend it with that.
Oh, thank you. Mr. Gradius.
Okay, I appreciate everybody that came here and that stood up and talked. And I am not opposed to the 5%, but like I said earlier, we're trying to get you more. That's the issue here. And the county did not get 6% across the board. I just talked to the supervisors. They got a 3% cost of living increase, plus they implemented their phase 3 of the recent pay study that they just had done no less than 2 years ago. Okay, so there's a misconception. They're not getting 6%, 3% for sure, and not 6%. The other issue is this raise considered a COLA just because we're saying it's a COLA, or is this just a raise for the employees, trying to get them to a certain point before we do our actual study? What determines this as being a COLA other than just a raise?
Mr. Bermudez?
Mr. Mayor, the raise is whatever we have implemented in our regular rate study, right? So from 0 to 10, you get 1% every year. That is considered a raise. Okay. This will bring us 5% closer to what we need to be. So it could be considered a raise, or it can be considered a cost of living adjustment. I would take it as a cost of living adjustment, and then because there's some people that are going to get 6%, so basically they're getting the 5% cost of living adjustment and the 1% raise.
Following up, I saw a couple that are getting 4%. Is there a reason for that?
4% where, Councilman?
On the raise, on the paperwork that was handed to me, it said 4%. And I don't know if it's with years of service or they're an entry-level employee, but on this worksheet that I was given, there's some that are getting 4%. Some are getting 6%. So why isn't it across the board 5%? There's somebody here, well, that one doesn't count as the city prosecutor. But for example, Benjamin Byerly and Jesus Moraila are only getting a 4% increase for whatever reason. And there's some discrepancies here that I don't agree with. I've also looked at the implementation of a 2580 across the board, which after really looking at this, there's only 75 employees that would get less than 5%. There's a bunch that would get 6-7%, the majority. And out of those 75, there's 29 that are less than 0.4% away from 5%. So it's pretty close to 5. So that leaves 26 employees that wouldn't get as much. But the 2580, that'll bring everybody up to par. It won't cause any compression. And from 1 all the way up to the top, we'll be getting the same amount of money, but yet some will be getting a higher percentage if we're looking at percentages. But the people that will be affected minimally are only 29 employees out of 310. And the other thing I have concern with is, yeah, you proposed this budget. There was some issues with it that we didn't have really like, and we all decided to go upon ourselves and try and finish or try to work out things that might be more beneficial to better serve our employees. But I definitely think that is the job of the city manager and finance department to do. We give you direction. We look at all the numbers. We're not happy with what was proposed. Let's try something else. At the very minimum, I'm in agreement with 5%. But if we can get our employees much more, then I think that's what we should do. But just because we passed the budget today, if we don't have to include the 5%, there's still time to work on it. And they're not losing any money because all this is retroactive. Whether we go back to 5%, whether we decide on implementing a number across the board, that's not going to affect anybody, because the paycheck, when we finally do approve the budget, is going to be retroactive to July 1st. That's the start of the fiscal year, correct? So nobody's losing money. You're not being held hostage. Your money's not being taken from you. I want you all to understand. And yes, Public Works, Street Department, they're not here. That doesn't mean we don't represent them, and that doesn't mean they don't count. So I do appreciate the ones that are here, and I applaud you for it, but let's be realistic. This is something that as a council, we should have met before and talked about it, hashed this out, and not air our dirty laundry out in public, because I don't feel I'm prepared because we haven't discussed all these other plans. And like I said before, I'm all for 5% at the minimum, but if we can give you more, then why not look at those and address those issues?
Just a comment, Mr. Gradillas, my point of view is we give the 5% right now, and then we'll do the compensation study, and then we're going to look at how we basically fix it to where everybody, as a council, in discussion, we look at it as to how, where we got to tweak it and all that. Who we move up to a higher pay or do we leave the others the same? That's the basic plan. Do the 5% right now and do the compensation study and come back and between council look at the numbers, and then we with staff we look at how we adjust. That's my proposal. Yes, sir, Mr. Doyle.
Mayor, but see, I keep hearing say that we're coming back after the compensation study. Whatever plan we get, we're still going to do that. We're going to come back and we can even tweak it more there. So right now it's which plan will work best. I guess that's what we're looking at.
Anybody else?
Mayor?
Councilwoman?
Yeah. So I don't want to repeat what Council Member Mr. Gradias mentioned, because some of the things that he mentioned are with validity. I'm not going to be here on the dais getting into a spitting match with the public because it doesn't do any good, because it's very easy to sit here and be thrown accusations that are unfunded, they're not real. And an attorney sits right here to my right, and he knows very well if you're going to throw punches, you should back them up with facts. And the fact is, just want to throw it out there, and so it could be on record. We did ask for different scenarios that would be in the best interest of the 311 employees. In fact, just today, I learned that it changes. It's not 311, it changes a little bit. So that's how we're working every day, sort of different numbers. We can only do it with what is given to us. So going back to the facts, at least my facts, because I can only work with my facts. We've been asking, and it's all public record, for information. So when we're not given information, we have to do our due diligence and get the information. So there are 311 employees, but this morning I found out that there's 2 or 3, which wouldn't make a big difference when you're looking at the numbers. So out of the 311, I just want this to be on record. So because our memory is short and we forget things, and then the dais changes, opinions change, and people change. So out of 311 employees, 239 employees would benefit, dividing equally that $800,000. 239 employees would get more than what they're getting with a 5%. It's my math. It could be wrong, but I've been asked for, like he said, different scenarios. 72 employees would be, so 72 employees would benefit with a 5% proposed. And going back to the salary schedule you just showed you, that's what we're working with, okay? There are variances there, depending on your years of experience and so forth. So going back to the facts, we work with what we get. And someday some of you will be up here and you'll kind of know what I'm talking about. So we can only work with that. Accusations can be made all you want, and misinformation all you want, and that's okay. That's what happens when we're public officials. We see it across the country. That's one of the things that we have to put up with, and it's okay. I'm willing to, but the fact is I want this to be on record that there's no ill feelings here, and there's nothing personal. We have nothing to gain by doing something that is not in the best interest of the 311 employees. So again, I wanted that to be, I'm fine with the 5%. I'm fine with everybody getting it across the board. I have no issue with it. It doesn't affect me personally, because that's not what I was voted to do. What I was voted to do is do what's in the best interest of all the 311. If you're okay with what you're getting with the 5% and you've done your math, that's fine. It's fine with me. But remember that you advocated for that, for the across the board, if that's what we go with. And I know the judge talked to me. You asked me to talk to you, and being an attorney, I know you did your your research and you're advocating for your employees. Well, it's almost like we're advocating for all 311. And we can have millions of opinions on how the money should be spread. But like Mr. Gradia says, there's also other, 290 employees out there. And the citizens that are going to pay for all this too. So as public officials, we listen to everybody. So, and it's not an easy job to do.
Vice Mayor?
You know, there's not an easy way, an easy solution for this. I went through the budget, I don't know, like 100 times, you know, and I kept going through the figures, and there's no easy way of making everybody happy. All the employees are important. Of course, some are their jobs have more risk in it, like the fireman, the police department, and so we don't want to say that one employee is more important than the other, but we were trying to make it as fair as possible by trying to tweak it and give everybody a 5% or maybe make some adjustments on the higher tier. But it seems like everybody's satisfied with the 5%. So there's also other things that I saw in the budget, like for instance, the police chief. It says he's actually getting $115,427, and then starting for fiscal year 25, he's going down to $110,157. So I don't understand that change. And then there's in legal, there's an employee that's not getting the 5%. He's only getting $2,000. So there's other things that need to be corrected in this budget. So I don't know how we go about that. But if we have to vote for the 5% tonight, you know, if it makes everybody happy, then so be it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You know, I'm pretty sure, finance and our city manager and everybody's going to make sure the I's are dotted and T's are crossed before the final numbers are come about. You know, thank you for bringing those up. But, I think it is the right way to go. So I move to do a roll call vote. With that, Ms. Letty, I'll start it off with the going for the 5%, and I vote yes. Vice Mayor?
Aye.
Ms. Montiel?
Aye.
Diaz?
Aye.
Moneda?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, we good. Motion approved, 7-0, Ms. Robinson. Go to number 2, consideration and possible action of order 2024-07-029. An order of the Council of the City of Nogales, Arizona, authorizing city manager to sign and to enter into the Kroger settlement agreement in accordance with the One Arizona Distribution of Opioid Settlement Funds Agreement. Any discussion? Go ahead, Mr. Gradius.
I know we have this issue coming up in the next meeting also. I just wanted to have a legal opinion as to, this is in the best interest of the city, because I saw that the percentages derived from the settlement, the county gets 76%, the city gets 22%. Is there anything that we could have worked out more? Or is this the best that the city can get?
Mayor, Council, this decision to enter into the Kroger deal or settlement is really, it's either enter into the settlement package deal or opt out and then litigate on your own with Kroger. The One Arizona agreement, which the city entered into probably a couple of years ago, is what the Attorney General negotiated at the time. The Attorney General negotiated with local governments. So 56% of the settlement money for this One Arizona goes to counties and cities and towns. 44% goes to the state. And then the distribution is simply based on population. So I believe that Nogales has already entered into a agreement with the county and maybe Patagonia to pool the money, and so it's used regionally in the county. So essentially, all of the three sort of government entities share in the one pot to use across the county. So my recommendation is that you should approve the entering into the settlement agreement, and it would be, as you recall, just a little bit of history. The first settlements were with the manufacturers, the pharmaceutical companies. The next were with the big distributors like McKesson, and now these are the retailers. So I think you can expect down the road we'll probably see a CVS or a Walgreens type settlements. Are probably forthcoming. So this is a I don't want to say it's a good deal because there's a bad situation created by the opioid crisis, but this is to help relieve that problem and prevent it from going further.
Thank you. Any other? With that said, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Move to adjourn this meeting. All in favor? Aye.